Coming to you from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, this is The Stand with your hosts Shane Williams and Lance Dobbs.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Stand. We have our second interviewee, Tate, with us. We're going to go over world economics and economics here within the United States. Before we start diving in and stuff like that, just wanted to give a big thanks to all our viewers for subscribing, liking us, sharing us. I've been seeing a lot of that from our Facebook page. Really appreciate it. Again, this is the only way we're going to grow. We're going to get bigger. We can start getting a lot more people on, a lot more people involved in the stand. So then we can get a lot more articles and a lot more information out to you, the viewer. So going on, we're just going to start off with the history of the Federal Reserve and how it impacts us today. Pretty much from the 1900s, the Federal Reserve was created from three men, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and Rockefeller, I believe. They created a private Federal Reserve where they can pretty much manipulate the money and have the money distributed as they please. They can also create crisis and then also deflate the crisis whenever they need it in their favor. So pretty much how money is made, I think that's is the biggest question. So I'll give you something like this. So say $10, America needs $10 from the private reserve bank. They ask the private reserve for $10, and so the Federal Reserve then gives them the $10 say with interest attached to it. They then the American banks now have that $10 along with the interest on it. Then they shoot it out to the local banks with another interest attached to the interest that's already on it. So by the time you receive your dollar, it's pretty much worth not even the paper that it's printed on. And that's pretty much where they keep us in debt perpetually, and how it's a constant, just a constant perpetual debt that we're always in. And it's pretty much the system was created for failure.
Actually, I want to chime in
Yeah.
on what you were talking about there. A lot of citizens don't realize back before the Federal Reserve was set up, there was what they call goldsmiths. Goldsmiths were the ones who were the first bankers. They were the first private bankers, and what they did is they got the wealth of their nation, which was gold. And the citizens of that country, they would have when they would do their shopping. Obviously, they couldn't carry gold around. They couldn't carry that weight, so they had to get a receipt. And in the same context, if you go to a store and you buy, say a sweater or jacket or whatever, and you figure out you don't like it, you're like, I'm going to return this and get my money back. Well, if you lose your receipt, you won't be able to get that item back because the receipt was a symbol of money. It had a form of value to it. Right. Same way, the goldsmiths, they would have the gold on deposit. The citizens would go say, I want to spend this amount of weight of gold, and they would be offered a receipt for that gold. So they would take the receipt, go buy their, groceries, whatever they needed for the day, come back to the goldsmith or the banker, and they would get their gold back, and they would be able to take it home. Okay, that was prior to to the coming of the Federal Reserve. And as you know, this has been going on for hundreds of years, right. hundreds of years. Then we come down to Abraham Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln has been taught in schools, and we know much about him as what the history books state. But Abraham Lincoln was considered Honest Abe. He was an honest man. He wasn't really caught up in the politics part. But he realized at the time where they would started everything was bartered. Gold, everything had a barter to it. And with a barter, you couldn't have inflation. But they ran into difficulties, so Abraham Lincoln created what they call the greenback.
Exactly.
And the greenback was not necessarily money not backed by gold, but it was money still backed and accredited. And the elitists over Abraham Lincoln didn't like the direction he was taking with the economy because he wanted to keep gold as part of wealth for a nation. Right. Any nation that is enriched by gold was considered a prosperous nation because gold, you can't destroy it.
Right, it's a physical thing that
Exactly.
you're able to hold, just like how buildings and houses are actually worth a lot more than having, so much money in the bank or having
Exactly.
stocks or anything else like that. Physical stuff is where the money actually at. So yeah, so continuing with Abraham Lincoln, we all know what happens to him. He gets shot in the head,
Exactly.
you
Now
know?
that's my point.
Right.
So you, as citizens, first of all, I want to point out where we get the word citizen, because I mean we are citizens, and a part of this group here, we are citizens that have a deeper concern for our country. We want to be more enlightened than the average citizen. But where do we get that word citizen? The word citizen comes from the Greek word politasi, where we get the word politics. And anytime you hear the word politics, it's going to be connected to the word citizens.
Right.
And as you can see right now, just with the campaign and just with the rioting, citizens are frustrated. Citizens are frustrated because they don't know too much and they're not getting their answers solved. So
Right. And
that's
then the information that they do get, can you really trust it?
exactly,
And you
exactly.
can just feel the tension that's going on. You walk around, you can see people are just living in fear and just angry and
Hmm.
everything else, and they just need guidance, and it's not so much guidance, it's just knowledge,
Okay.
and the government and really everybody else, all the elitist groups, really try to put a chokehold on the information from getting out. That's why it takes uh, um, secret documents to eventually get out with the request of the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
Hmm.
That's why it takes so long to get that request out.
Hmm.
But at that
Uh,
point, it's already too late.
it's already too late. I
Exactly.
mean, you're getting uh, like Hunting for Hitler, that program. They're able to get documents from 1945 now. That's
Hmm.
that's how long it takes, 75 years almost.
Hmm.
Getting off subject.
Well, I do want to point out, though, back to the elite part of politics.
Right,
Obviously Abraham Lincoln was a president who had leaders, and when Abraham Lincoln wanted to keep the barter system, with that system there would be no inflation, there would be no
No,
interest, there would be none of that. It would all be bartered.
and there'd be
The
no way for anybody to get money on your money if you kept it.
Exactly.
right,
So what happened was he was standing strong and firm with the barter system, but there's leaders and there's elitism, which we'll
hmm
we'll get into later.
right,
They didn't like
exactly.
the process where he was going. They didn't like the fact that he wasn't a so-called puppet as a leader. He wanted to stand strong with his greenback, and he wanted to get it back to a barter system. But we all know mysteriously he was assassinated.
Right,
Now let's think about the mind of assassin. If you want to get behind a mind of an assassinator, there's something in its way. The assassinator feels like this person is a threat to me. He must be taken out. He must not have life. We have to further this plan. And in the banking industry and the financing industry, they had a plan instilled for hundreds of years that they want to still fulfill in the year of 2016.
right,
And he was in the way. So, mystery. We don't really actually know, as far as the history books say, of how Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. But we do know that
right.
above the elitists knew exactly what they were doing and what has happened, and that's one of the reasons I agreed to be a part of this blog and this program, is because don't think for a second that some crazy nut out 100 years ago decided to aim a gun and point it at his head. He was a threat because he wanted to keep the financial system bartered, in which we now know today without that barter system. And let me point one thing out to you that I found some notes on. It said, this note says, when Richard Nixon severed the link to gold in
Right.
1971,
And that
and the
was
total U.S. federal debt stood at 398 billion. Okay, so that's when he severed it. Now, 34% of GDP. Today, it tops 17 trillion
Right.
from 398 billion back in 1971. So Richard Nixon was a pawn in the game to take the gold, to take the
To take us
United
off the
States
gold standard.
standard.
Right.
So now, guess what? What they discovered, the goldsmith system, is that if they didn't have it barter, they can take a $10 receipt and issue a $40 receipt into distribution,
Right, exactly.
creating
Because
money out of nowhere.
and it goes right back to what is now the Federal Reserve. I mean, powerful stuff there, Tate. Um, so continuing on, how the assassination of Lincoln and everything else like that. Fast forward back into the '60s now. John F. Kennedy asked for the same thing.
Exactly.
He wanted to pursue Abraham Lincoln's greenbacks.
Exactly.
You know,
Go back to the gold standard.
right?
Exactly.
Exactly, and just go back to things how they were.
Yep.
But somehow he was mysteriously
He was mysteriously
yeah,
assassinated.
assassinated also, you know, from Lee Harvey Oswald on a grassy knoll. Even though now it's coming out that, you know, if there's some videos saying that he was shot by the driver, where the driver turns around and shoots him back of the head. That's why you see him fly backwards, I mean, and not forward.
Mhm.
You know, and he also got shot in the neck, which is clearly seen in the video, and everything else like that. I mean, it's just a horrible way to go, you know. And then the Secret Service moments before was called off the car that they were guarding,
Mhm.
you know, in the prior to him going down the street there.
And that's a fine note to mention with Kennedy, because if you realize when President Kennedy was assassinated, he not only put in, good policies that can free the average citizen, but he touched a nation.
Right.
Half of America was weeping and shedding tears. And as you know, since the 1980s on up, we lost emotion for our leaders. They don't draw emotion from citizens no more. Citizens are angry at them. But when you look at Kennedy, they were all weeping when he died. They were all involved with what he was doing, and that can just show you from the plan behind the mind of an assassin how it still continues that anyone who poses a threat to the system of elitism, they're mysteriously taken out of the way.
Right.
You know,
Well, I mean, you can even say that to Reagan.
exactly,
Extent, you know?
Reaganomics.
They tried to take him out of that too, you know, but you know the assassin didn't do a good enough job, and he ended up living. I mean, they tried to execute Kennedy's family. If you think about it, you know, they killed his brother and everything else.
Mhm.
So enough of the Kennedys.
But to go on,
Right.
but to go on, and in the thread of what we're talking about is this is the elite group is a lot more deeper this than policy procedures.
Right.
There's a term that they have out today called blue blood, and blue blood is royal blood. It's an oath. It's more of a tact. And when you think about the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the
Yeah.
Carnegies, the Mellon, you will see these families' names never wiped out of existence. They were known as
Or
blue
not
bloods.
even put into mainstream media unless something is really big, something really big happened
Exactly.
to where their names actually come in. But these people really stay hidden, really don't want to beat their names out there,
Mhm.
and they've been around since the beginning almost. Not the beginning of the Earth and everything, but beginning as far as modern civilization and everything else like that.
Mhm. And and that's one of the things citizens don't understand, that we are being guided by elite groups
Right.
that have a common goal to protect their plan and to keep that bloodline pure. And that bloodline is a pact and it's agreement. And there's even rumors out there they have the group called the Illuminati, which I believe in. And Illuminati means what? Enlightened one, illuminated. That has nothing to do with money. That has everything to do with power. That
Knowledge.
has everything to do with greed, control. If they can figure out a system that can control citizens of inhabitants of that country, and if they can figure out a way they can manipulate them and control them, then they can perform and they can set up their kingdom of the blue blood nation, which
Right.
started back with Abraham Lincoln. And if anyone gets in the way of the blue blood policy, they are well in control of major corporations, major news media. One thing I do want to tap on about the programming of news industry. We've got CNBC, all these news media. They're controlled
Oh yeah,
by
absolutely.
the elitists. What they put out is controlled. There's not freedom of speech anymore. It's all
Controlled.
controlled politics.
Well, that goes back to the movie with Dustin Hoffman and what's it, Robert De Niro, Wag the Dog. I don't know if you've ever seen
I've
that.
seen that movie.
Right, yeah, great movie. If you want insight on how the Washington and pretty much the rest of the world controls the media, that's a great movie to see. But going further into the media and stuff like that, that's why you see the rise of alternative media and stuff like that. Nobody's really going to CNN anymore, and or Fox or MSNBC.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just really the I want to say the big uprise of alternative media, and they're going to YouTube and they're going to Facebook and stuff like that. Even though sometimes Facebook, I look at some of the articles that are on there and just
Well, they're just
Ver- ver-
articles of people,
right.
what they think.
and they're not totally a legitimacy. That's why we're here at the stand. We want you to investigate. We start talking about things, and if you pick up on little notes, research the stuff for yourself. Because knowledge is true power, like I said in the last episode. Um, so continue on about the Federal Reserve and stuff like that. There's been multiple times where they've been attacked trying to audit the Federal Reserve. Ted Cruz, Ron Paul, and then Rand Paul both asked for to audit the Fed, and now Donald Trump also. But going back to Ron Paul, he was pretty much the one who started it and was asking for the audit of the Fed. Now, if you want the whole thing, the whole theory behind auditing the Fed is, where's all that money going that's being produced supposedly? I don't see a big increase on my paycheck or anything else in the globe. I mean, we're in 2016 now. With all this money that's floating around the world supposedly, we should be already in the conquering planets. Other planets and stuff like that. Why are we still stuck on this one planet?
I mean, back to where the Federal Reserve did in 2008.
Right.
Banks all collapsed. Federal Reserve, they didn't want a crisis and all of the world's economy to go down, so they pumped all their money into the banks of America.
Right.
And now it's doing it again. It's probably going to be, I'd say, like the banks just changed the word that they were doing, and they propped up all their propositions, and now they're just big and huge again, and they're probably going to be doing another crash.
Right. I mean, you could. I mean, Tate, if you want to speak on that, what do you see with the stocks going right now? Because like how Lance said, we just came out. 2008 was just what 8 years ago.
Well, in the history of the financial market, we have boom, we have bust cycles, we have recessions. There was the tulip mania bubble. There was the South Sea bubble. These inflated time periods were a plan and a scheme to confiscate the money of American citizens. They considered the stock market the heartbeat of the economy.
Right. Absolutely.
And the funny thing about that, the word economy comes from also the Greek word diokoinema, where we get the word economy. And that means managing, managing this whole heartbeat. And it's only concerned with the United States of America. When you look at, like you were saying, Chicago, there's different economies out there,
right.
Exchanges going back and forth. But what citizens don't realize, even now, like for example, on 9/11, that day that happened, it was a day where we lost a lot of good Americans. But there was a flip side. There was a flip side on the economy side. People that invested in gold, they knew for some reason when that incident happened, gold shot up, and there was a lot of wealthy people that made money off dead souls.
Right.
So the economy can be manipulated. And when President Obama took the helm, he actually, quote unquote, was the only president to come in the midst of a financial crisis. That's basically, they said that's what the cards he was dealt with.
Right, exactly.
But he specifically pumped in $700 billion into the economy to so-called stimulate the economy. It went from 700 billion to him saying, be patient. It takes time for the money to go through the system. It takes time for all this to restore. You will see a recovery. You will see this. Then we had the BP oil spill. We have all these catastrophes. They had to pump more money back into the system. All that stuff, all that stuff came in. They kept the pump. Then we had what they call quantitative easing. Now, QE was where they feed the banks. But every time the Federal Reserve issues any type of and first of all, it's not money; it's bank reserves.
Right.
People keep thinking that a paper dollar is in increments is assets. No, they're bank reserves. When they issue bank reserve, they have to buy security. They have to take on a form of debt to issue debt.
Exactly.
So
I was saying earlier, they tack on interest to nothing. There is nothing.
Exactly.
It's nothing.
It's just, but it goes back down to the blue blood connection, and entrapping people into bondage. Now, I am from Generation X. I know you guys here are not from Generation X, but I am from Generation X, and I lived in the times where we had no credit. Credit cards weren't a existence yet. It was all based upon going to work and paying off your bills and staying so-called barter.
Right.
But when the plastic started being released, it made simple-minded Americans that have the education just of a 12th grade education excited because now they had, even though they didn't have income coming in, they had a solid piece of plastic that said they could purchase, they had a $10,000 limit.
Right.
So they were kind of enriched with plastic, which led to the series of debt and which led to the ceilings and which led to our current crisis
Well, it's
today.
like you get something new, you know, you're just like so excited and they go out and spend, spend, spend.
Exactly.
Inflation goes up and everything else, and you know, right back at 2008.
So you also have a whole bunch of the world economies that are dropping
Right.
too. So Brazil is in their worst recession in their country right now. You have Canada, who's in a big housing bubble also.
Yeah, I want you to speak on Canada real quick.
So what we did in 2008 with our housing crisis was the same. It's the exact same thing Canada is going through right now. They're at the top of their bubble, and once it pops, their economy is just going to follow full, just like ours.
Right. But isn't their housing economy slightly higher than ours at the same
Well, yeah.
time point?
There's a couple tables out there where it shows the economy of America going up and how their housing market correlates with the stock. And Canada is like 10% higher than what we were.
Right.
So it's just going to be a bigger drop. And Canada is going to, like, it is just going to drop really bad. And you have.
So we're possibly going to have to bail out Canada. I mean,
as well
from
as
what it
Brazil.
sounds like, you know, it's almost sounding like because Mexico's about to fall under, you know, with everything
Mhm.
going on over there, we're about to go, and then Canada. It's almost like they want to start a North American Union, but you know, we'll get more into that later on. Pretty much where we become the EU, but would be the
The global economy, you got Canada with its housing bubble. You got Brazil with their economic collapse right now. Just in the past year, 3 out of the top 10 countries in GDP or just economic powers are failing.
right.
If we crash again, we'll be the fourth in the last year and a half. You got a ton of European countries that are collapsing or starting their collapse. Greece is one of them. You got Portugal. Spain is going through a collapse too. Um,
Right.
so
So pretty much the whole European Union is going down because of the whole migrant crisis and everybody flooding in.
so you got all
You
these
know.
countries that want to jump out. So Britain's trying to get out. Germany, their leader Merkel was saying they want to let in 1 million refugees. Immediately, like 3/4 of the country turned against her, and now like her vote is dwindling so fast it's not even funny.
Right.
But yeah, you got just all these countries that are just going under. All these countries: Canada, U.S., Brazil, Portugal, Spain, Greece, all under debt.
Right.
And this all ties back to the Federal Reserve.
You see, one of the things too, we got to keep in mind when we keep the mindset of the Illuminati. They have a term where it's a Latin term called order of chaos, and it means order out of chaos.
Right.
So they figured if they can create the chaos,
Mhm.
they can get the order.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so we've been talking about declining, falling,
Right.
everything recession
Problem,
crashes.
reaction, solution. Problem,
From the
reaction, solution.
1929 recession, 1930s recession, they were saying it can be compared with the 2008 recession. Well, uh, that's one of their high points of getting control is crashing everything. That's why they control the stock market. Don't believe for a second when you go into the stock market, you're not being controlled. It is a market that you can make profits, but it's still a market that has manipulation in it. It's still a market that's leading to their order. Now, when you talk about global finance, we were talking about the Federal Reserve.
Right.
We do have the IMF. Now, the IMF.
There it
Some
is.
people think that Hillary Clinton is a powerful woman, but I'm here to correct that and say that the world doesn't realize that the most powerful woman right now is Christine Lagarde. She's the director and head of the IMF. So when you say what is the IMF? The acronym for IMF is International Monetary Funding. Fund. They don't just control money for the United States. They control decisions worldwide,
Right. Yeah.
globally. Now, when you go back in history, a lot of our emperors and a lot of our you hear about Alexander the Great, all those guys, they were tied into the Illuminati. They were tied into where we were going forward. And no one, at each attempt, they all wanted a one world currency.
Right.
They all wanted to go towards uniting globally, but they all failed. But that has been the heartbeat in the spiritual illuminated side of the Illuminati, is to have a one world currency. But
it's much easier to control if there's one currency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to create chaos to get order. You have to crash economies. You have to get the citizens to agree with it.
Exactly. Because it's not out of what am I trying to say? You have to have people go along with the system.
Exactly.
You can't force it into them. Because then it turns into something else, and that's where you get riots and everything else.
The militias form,
Right.
and then you get
So,
people
but if
trying
you
to
have people
overthrow you.
agreeing
Exactly.
with what's going on,
And that goes back down to the stand. You say the stand.
Yeah.
What is the stand? That's protecting yourself. That's protecting citizens. They have to take a stand. Or if they do not take a stand, then that plan will go and we'll be in bondage.
well, it's just like our amendments. If we don't exercise our amendments, our first or second, and so on, we lose it.
They
We
get
see it
tarnished.
happening right now.
Yeah, they get
You know?
tarnished. They start getting like the amendments that get put onto the amendments,
Right.
And then they just start
Loopholes and
slowly
everything else. Just how
folding
they're
and-
talking about the Second Amendment, saying that to have a militia, and then they're manipulating the words, saying, "Oh, we already have a militia. You have the army." I mean, just to go on from that. I mean, it's just a manipulation of everything, the version of reality, and that's what we're seeing right now.
But the IMF right now, they're working towards this type of currency called an SDR. Now, SDR is in the
Yeah.
same line of bank reserves.
Yeah.
They're still a form of assets. We have different. Money is not just one form as far as paper dollars. You have stocks, you have bonds, you have land, you have all these different forms of assets, but they're tying in a special asset that has authority over all the others. And the acronym for this is SDR, and the IMF are working on that now, and it's a special drawing rights of the International Monetary Fund. So now it will enable them to take complete control over the global finance.
Exactly.
And I think we are now 2,000 years into this establishment, where in 2016, like I said before, the emperors before Abraham Lincoln, all this, they were all still dealing with the flow of currency and citizens and unlocking them to believe in the system. But like we said, like we were talking about, before they can do that, they have to cripple the citizens'
Exactly.
mindset. We have to agree to it. We have to say we want this. And I think that's where all the aggression is coming from today with all these campaigns and all these people protesting. They're risking their lives because they feel that they're just being enslaved.
Right.
We've got glimpses of pockets of it around the world with all these situations like the Rodney King and the rioting and they're frustrated, and it's a bomb that's about to blow if they don't get the knowledge they need, if they don't get the understanding, and it's not coming from the presidents.
No, absolutely. And like I said, third time saying it, seek the knowledge for yourself, and you feel better. I mean, just doing the show, I mean, I feel such a huge release every time I come on. Just pure. I just feel so pure when I come on here because I'm speaking truth. I'm giving it out to you, and we all are. And the more that you know, and the more that you share this information with people, it's I'm telling you, you're going to get such a fulfillment that you'll never felt before. I can promise you, because I'm doing it, I'm living it. Um, but yeah, it's just super exciting stuff going on. It's such an exciting time to be alive, I think. Because right now I think we're on the knife's edge where we could go down this horrible path of what the world has possibly ever seen, or it could shoot out, and the Renaissance could go even further than what we are now. That's what I strongly feel, and you can feel the tension in the air. I mean, it's thick, so thick you can cut it with a knife. So the IMF, we'll take it from there. So you can talk a little bit about that. because you're talking about
That
what was it the
the
S
SRS
yeah
or
The SDRs.
SDRs.
So, I mean, just with the SDRs, what I want the people to know and get an understanding of that in a nutshell, um, the blind can't lead the blind. We got to have true leaders. We got to have truth. And we want to thank you just for participating in this group discussion and hope that you continue to follow as we just bring more of our truth. Because again, the blind cannot lead the blind. We need truth. So
Right.
thanks for joining in with the stand. Hope to see you next time.
And yeah, we're constantly still learning. So
yeah it's a journey for ourselves too. The truth, it will always be limitless. uh You don't have to take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. You, as a patriot, as a citizen, should already have that within your heart. And if you want to see America rise again, then that should already be a part of you. Again, this is Shane Lance and Tate for The Stand. Like us, support us, and subscribe.